The Skypia arc starts after the events of Alabasta, though if I'm being specific, it's actually the Jaya arc which builds up to the Skypia arc, no pun intended. Luffy struggles to breathe in the Emperor Cloud. Blackbeard laughs seeing the Straw Hat Pirates ride the Nook upstream. He also says if their will is strong, they will meet them again. The Straw Hats begin sailing on the clouds. Usopp ignores Sanji's warnings and goes off for a swim. Luffy stretches his arm and Robin uses her Delphoot to put eyes on Luffy so she can find Usopp. Once they pull up Usopp, we see creatures that look pretty hungry. Zoro pops the large creature, and Robin remembers Nolan mentioned skyfishes in his diary and how they evolved to survive in the bottomless ocean. Chopper notices a ship get destroyed, and a masked man jumps on the Going Merry, threatening the Straw Hats. The masked man easily handles the monster trio, and it takes the Sky Knight to save the day. Luffy couldn't move because the air was too thin. The Sky Knight explains the White Sea floats 23,000 feet above the Blue Sea. There's even a higher sea called the White Sea, which is 33,000 feet above the Blue Sea. Most Blue Sea residents can't handle the altitudes, but Luffy and Zoro quickly get used to it. The Sky Knight explains he is a soldier of fortune and charges 5 million X-tolls to have a whistle they can blow to be saved. Pause. A confused Straw Hat learned there was another way to come to the sky through Peak of High West. They also learned there are many sky islands. The Sky Knight is impressed that they took the knock upstream, stating you have to have both skill and courage. He gives a free whistle and introduces himself as Sconefall and his partner Pierre, who's a bird who ate the horse Delphoot, the ugliest Pegasus I have ever seen. They reach Heaven's Gate, which scares Usopp, who thinks they might die. Zoro counters saying we might already be dead. Zoro truly has no fear of the Grim Reaper. They meet Amazon, the Heaven's Gate inspector, who charges 1 billion X-toll to each to reach the upper stratum. She lets them pass for free by using the Lobster Express. She then reports to the so-called Kami and his vessels that 7 people have illegally entered Skypia, and to render Heaven's judgment. Talk about too good to be true when it comes to someone letting you in for free. The cloud the Straw Hats are riding on turns into a river. They notice the words Godland Skypia at the exit, but soon realize it's the entrance. They finally reach the beautiful Skypia. The Straw Hats are happy and smell adventure. Nama even says the Navy can't find us here, we can relax. They see a person they believe to be an angel playing the harp. Conus introduces herself and says they are at an angel beach, pun intended. Her father screams Hesso as he rides on this waiver vehicle, the same vehicle Luffy salvaged, and Nami explains Nolan mentioned in his diary a boat that doesn't need wind. Conus' father introduces himself as Pagia and invites the Straw Hats into his home. Nami asks how his vehicle moves on the wave, and Conus mentions dials. Luffy starts riding the waiver and falls into the sea and almost drowns. Zoro and Sanji, Chopper jump in to save him, and Usopp asks why Chopper jumped in when he also has a Delphoot. Pagia says it takes 10 years of practice to use the waiver, but Nami does it instantly, which makes Luffy jealous. Pagia explains the cloud quarry where they cut clouds for construction. Pagia lets them know they came here through the Milky Road. Pagia also explained there are 2 types of natural clouds. Sea clouds is for ships and island clouds is for walking. Pagia also explains there is an ingredient in sea prism stone called pyrobloin that makes these clouds different. He also explains how particles of keratin are hurled into the sky by volcanoes and they absorb moisture depending on their density. They either become sea clouds or island clouds. Conus explains a tone dial used for recording and a wind dial used on the waivers. The civilization of Skypia is ran on different type of dials. Conus is worried when Nami hasn't returned because in Skypia there's one place you must never go. The reason being it's sacred. It's the upper yard, the domain of this so-called Kami. Conus lets Luffy know it's God's land, the realm of the omnipotent Eneru or Enel, but his crew already knows he's going to go there. And knowing what we know about Luffy, Conus telling Luffy this is kind of ironic. Pagia offers to fix the old waiver Luffy found, being he is a dial craft engineer or whatever that means. Nami, seeing these trees, wonders how old they are. My guess would be around 900 to 1,000 years old. Just a random guess. No reason. We then see a human running from 3 individuals competing for their prey, one using a big dog, one riding on a flying creature, and the other bouncing around. They get shot by the masked man we saw earlier, so these Skypian police officers approach Luffy by crawling like some sort of boot camp training. Luffy and the others got caught on camera trespassing. The punishment is to pay 10 times the entrance fee, which in Blue Sea currency is 7 million berries, meaning the original entrance fee is around 700,000 berries, which is not that much when you look at the current highest bounty in the series. Nami comes back happy, it's just a fine, but once she hears the amount, crashes into Captain McKinley. This eventually gets them exiled to the cloud. Caunus explains you're dropped on a cloud with no way to escape, pretty much a death sentence. Luffy begins his fight with the Skypian police by dodging the milky arrows that shot clouds as they glide on the clouds with some special shoes enhanced with a dial. Luffy dodges and uses his firework attack, which destroys them with ease. Zoro and Sanji finish the rest off. Captain McKinley says they are now 2-degree criminals and will have to deal with the priest of the upper yard. Nami begins to argue about heading to upper yard or leaving, as she cares about her life more than adventure. Even money comes before adventure for her. Caunus explains if they want to escape, they have to go down a level and sail to the far east of the White Sea, to a place known as Cloud's End. Paglia asks Usopp if he is a shipwright, and he replies, we don't have a carpenter, foreshadowing the next arc. A famous inhabitant of the White Sea, the Special Lobster Express carries the Going Merry away with Zoro, Nami, Robin, and Chopper on the ship. Giant skyfish chase the ship so the crew can't jump ship. Paglia lets Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp know that the ship is headed to the northeast of the upper yard, to the sacrificial yard and also the sacrificial altar, which shocks Sanji. We learn it's all part of heaven's punishment. Criminals either get sacrificed or undergo a challenge. Usopp pulls out a map and they realize they need a dial ship to follow the Milky Road through the forest of Upper Yard. They have to follow the Milky Road because of man-eating fish surrounding the coast across the island. So Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp realize in order to rescue the crew, they need to defeat the priest. And Paglia lets them know Enel is above them as well. Luffy, Sanji, Usopp are escorted by Caunus through Lovely Street, busiest on the Angel Island, as they get the dirtiest looks because they are criminals. Luffy tells Sanji relax, Zoro's with them, and Usopp is worried for the Going Merry. We see this interesting statue that is explained to be Verth to the inhabitants of the sky. It's an object of eternal admiration. Caunus shows the ship they are renting called the Karasumaru with a crow figurehead, and Luffy does not like it. Luffy notices Caunus has been shaken since they left their house. Caunus was the one who summoned the Special Lobster Express. This is what we call a setup girl. Caunus asks for forgiveness and explains she would have been killed if she did not lead them to the punishment site, so she messes up the backdoor plan. Luffy calls her a dummy, and Sanji and Usopp join him in scolding Caunus by yelling, "Why did you tell us that?" Enel attacks Caunus, but Luffy grabs her, and out of nowhere the Sky Knight arrives to save the day. He promises Luffy to protect Caunus from Enel, and warns Luffy about his power, as of course Luffy does not care. Caunus knows Gonfall and asks him to come back as Kami. And one thing is for sure, Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp didn't mind being sacrificed for Caunus. Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp approach this huge forest. The map has a forest, but nothing like the one in front of their eyes, as the map is 200 years old. But it would take 1,000 years for a forest to grow that size. Like maybe the map was from the Void Century, that blank century that Oda keeps hyping up. Nah, it's just a coincidence. We see a bunch of ships wrecked and huge sickles swinging, so Luffy bazookas the guys out of there. Sanji then defeats the huge blood-sucking Sky Lamprey. They eventually reach this huge statue that has 4 entrances: Challenge of the Swamp, Challenge of the Iron, Challenge of the String, and Challenge of the Ball. Cut to Zoro and the rest of the crew, and we see him defeat this huge sky shark himself with his fist instead of his sword. Zoro then lets the rest know he does not pray to Kami. Robin realizes the altar must be 1,000 years old and wants to explore the island for vulnerable artifacts and jewels, which Nami loves to hear. Zoro does his Tarzan yell and swings to the island. Chopper stays behind because he's too scared, but then realizes he's in more danger guarding the ship, being alone and all. We see the priest again, who are observing the Straw Hats, and they start giving statements. First one says they have no respect for Kami. Second one says let's give them the challenge they chose, we provide. Third one says guilt is to live with ignorance. Fourth one says there is no peace to be found in the heavens. They all look powerful, especially the last one. They decide the ball challenge, and Luffy starts trolling, saying they might have chose the wrong one and might fall off the island, 33,000 feet up in the sky. They end up falling, but not that far, and are faced with a lot of balls made out of island cloud. Sanji, the most perceptive out of the bunch, assumed there would be one of the 4 priests since there was 4 entrances. A snake attacks, which Luffy swiftly kicks out the way, and Sanji attempts to kick an island cloud ball, and it explodes on them. The priest Satori of the forest eventually says Heso. Luffy tries to attack and he predicts Luffy stretching out to hit him and dodges swiftly, while also countering. He then predicts Sanji's head kick and states Mantra is a power granted only to the faithful as he counters Sanji as well. He then hits Luffy with an attack called Impact. Satori then explains they have to get on their boat past the island cloud balls and only have 10% of a chance surviving the forest of no return. Luffy lets Sanji and Usopp deal with the ship as he wants to kick Satori's ass, rightfully so, as he is Monkey D. Luffy. He dodges another one of Luffy's attacks and slams him into a tree. He then hits a surprise ball towards Sanji, but it ends up hitting Usopp's huge nose and a flower comes out as Satori says wrong ball. Luffy, frustrated, does his signature Gatling attack and ends up hitting all the balls, causing chaos. We see a spear ball, crab ball, bird ball, and a fireball, which I find hilarious when Luffy burnt the shark with his ass. Luffy luckily grabs a vine and turns into Tarzan, just like Zoro. Usopp's new invention, Tarzan noise, where he launches a rope and swings to the ship, but it gets stuck in Usopp fashion. Sanji beats their ass for swinging around like some monkeys. Satori then hits Sanji with a direct blow which causes blood to come out of his mouth. We get a flashback to the Straw Hats arguing over the Sky Knight Gonfo's whistle, and Nami decides Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Robin are banned from blowing it and leaves it on the merry-go mast. One of the priests fly on the ship in present time, surprised there is only one sacrificial lamb, and Chopper immediately blows the whistle like he's the rapper Too Short. We see Gonfo gardening and letting Pagia know Enel's mantra can't reach here. Gonfo explains the Straw Hats are pirates with their black flag. Pagia says so they're criminals from the start, and Gonfo prefers the term outsiders. 20 years ago when Gonfo ran Angel Island, he was friends with pirates. He then explains Skypia has always been fighting with the Shandians and how they challenge Enel to this day. Gonfo was close to peace with the Shandians until Enel took his spot. Gonfo explains the legend of Skypia where a beautiful sound rang out from Upper Yard and started the fighting between Shandians and the Sky People. Gonfo believes the next time we hear the song of the island, the fighting will stop. Back to the merry-go, and it's on fire as Chopper rips the mast out and throws it in the water. We then get introduced to the priest's pet or creature he flies on called Fuza, the riding rock. The priest is called the Sky Rider Shura, who gets frustrated since Chopper doesn't want him to kill his friends or destroy his ship or die and calls him spoiled. Well, that means most of the world is spoiled, dude. He then calls Chopper weak as he attacks with his burning spear. Chopper then notices he can predict his every move just like Satori did to Luffy and Sanji. Shura then lets Chopper know Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp are trying to reach the sacrificial altar. Also states there are 4 areas on the island ruled by different priests. He then says another priest can't interfere when a target enters their area and explains how the sacrificial altar is fair game. Because Zoro left, there has to be a sacrifice, and Shura stabs Chopper with his burning spear. Gonfo arrives and rescues Chopper from being killed. He then jumps on Shura's bird, Buza, and sends him flying to the shock of Chopper, who's realizing Gonfo is actually strong. Shura gets saved before falling into the Milky Road and unleashed the string challenge. We then switch it over to the Shandians over at the Hidden Cloud Village. Yes, this is still One Piece, not Naruto. A little girl named Isa tries to sneak past Kamakiri. He tells her to be careful going to Upper Yard for Verth, and she replies, "That's my problem. And you won't beat Enel." We learned the masked man earlier is Wiper, and he says the great warrior Kalgera final orders were bringing back the light to Shandora. A girl named Rocky tries to defend Gonfo, but Wiper doesn't care if they have a common enemy in Enel, and would be happy if Gonfo took out a priest while dying. We learn Wiper is a descendant of Kalgera. Nami then looks into her binoculars and realizes something about this island. Chopper continues to watch the sky battle in awe as their power and speed is just insane. Gonfo starts to feel heavy and Shura takes advantage and stabs him while hyping up his mysterious string challenge. Chopper jumps in to save Gonfo even though he's a Zoan. Second time this has happened, mind you. Then Shura hits Pierre Zoan self as well. We jump back to the ball challenge and we see a dragon, not Kaido, but an island cloud ball dragon. Satori explains his ball dragon is made of surprise clouds. Luffy shows his battle genius by seeing the dragon is controlled by a string. Satori yanks the string, but Luffy is holding onto the dragon, causing a huge explosion that Satori nearly gets hit with. Luffy survived by jumping on Satori's back. Usopp finds the exit by climbing up a tree, while also seeing it's at the same height they fell at. We then see Sanji alive from the earlier attack and was almost killed from the explosion caused by Luffy. Since Nami and Robin are waiting for Sanji, he accepts the priest's challenge. I'm sure he cares about Chopper and Zoro as well, though Zoro might be iffy. Sanji then offers his love challenge and Satori complains it's not fair since it's a 2v1. Luffy lets Satori know being able to predict moves in a fight is pretty handy, but he can't use mantra if he can't move. It's like Luffy was seeing into the future, no pun intended. Sanji then does a spinning head kick that destroys the first priest, Satori. Aisa tells Wiper that two have fallen in Upper Yard at the same time using her mantra, and Wiper assumes it's Gonfall and one of Enel's priests. Aisa then tells Rocky it wasn't Gonfall, it was 3 other people. Sanji and Luffy, with the help of Usopp's invention, safely make it out of the forest of no return. One of the 2 remaining unnamed priests react to Satori's loss, saying he let his mantra slip, and he was weak. Looks like Haki transcends all, even before a certain someone said it. The priest with the sunglasses and dog named Holly vows to cut down anyone who comes for Enel, as things start to heat up. We then get Wiper leading the Shandians into the battle with Braham, Kamakiri, Gembo, and Raki as his top fighters as they swear by the soul of the great Kagera. The 3 remaining priests are alerted of this attack with their mantra. Chopper, Gonfall, and Pierre are safe and sound, and Chopper, confused, tends to their wounds as he looks up and sees a flying creature. Nami, Robin, and Zoro find half of the same house they saw on Jaya as they start to put 2 and 2 together and realize Upper Yard is the other half of Jaya. As Chopper sees huge southbirds are what saved him, and Gonfall and Nami learn Nolan's El Dorado didn't sink to the bottom of the sea, but it was in the sky. For some reason, I don't blame Nolan for thinking that, especially what we learned in Egghead Island. Nami thanks Kami because of the possible valuable gold, but also doesn't care about Enel, which confused Robin and Zoro. We see Shura fighting the Shandians. Wiper sees Luffy and shoots a cannon at him, but he reflects it with his balloon attack. And Wiper quickly notices Luffy is a Paramecia. Wiper then threatens to erase the Straw Hats alongside Enel, and Luffy says, "Bring it on." We then see the 2 unnamed priests fighting Braham and Kamakiri and Raki in a fierce battle. We then see Wiper attack a priest of his own as the sun sets, and Luffy, Sanji, Usopp fly throughout the challenges. Nami, Zoro, and Robin return to the altar as Chopper is crying and says nothing happened. Chopper lets Usopp know what happened to the Merry Go, who's upset but is just happy Chopper is safe. Luffy asks to see Gonfall, and Sanji thanks Pierre for the help and says he wants to ask Gonfall some questions. The Straw Hats set up camp, and Zoro asks Sanji about this mantra, and Sanji tells him it predicts our moves. Mind you, Zoro already used mantra in Alabasta, but that's beside the point. The Straw Hats, led by Luffy, have a new goal as pirates, and that's to find the gold. Kamakiri goes down, which angers Wiper as he wants one last push versus the priest, and the priest that owns the dog Holly lets Wiper know Nightfall is their advantage because of mantra, I'm assuming. As the Shandians retreat, Om tries to follow but gets stopped by his fellow priest who says Enel is calling. We see Sanji lead the charge at camp when it comes to cooking and asks Zoro to help him with his sword. Nami and the Straw Hats believe the reason for Upper Yard existing is because of the knockup stream. Robin explains the Skypia environment speeds up the growth of plants and animals rapidly, as why Jaya is different from Upper Yard. Chopper believes the Southbirds saved them because Gonfall used to be the Kami before Enel. They review what Nolan said in his ship log, which was a golden bell, and I saw gold in the skull's right eye. Nami then puts Jaya and Skypia's map together to see a skull shape. Robin suggests they put out the fires so the enemy doesn't find them, and Luffy and Usopp tell her that is not allowed while camping, and Zoro and Sanji help with the bonfire as Nami calls them idiots. They all start partying with the wolves of the island as Robin watches from afar the drums of liberation. Gonfall wakes up shocked at how the Straw Hats are partying on Enel's island with no fear. Gonfall explains how Upper Yard is sacred ground and how it shouldn't even exist in the sky, the valuable Verth which embodies the sky habitants' eternal hopes. Wiper is upset with Rocky for distracting Kamakiri when she tried to gather Verth for Aisa and had to be protected, which costed them one of their best soldiers. Kamakiri gets up and says a mere bag of Verth is significant if they defeat Enel tomorrow. He also says let's return Shandia to the state it was 400 years ago as the Skypia lore starts to come together. Usopp wakes up to go take a leak and sees a shadow figure fixing the Going Merry. Zoro goes to check up on Usopp, who passes out in shock. Gedatsu, who's biting his lip, mumbles to Om, and Shura understands that he's saying Enel has summoned them. The priests begin to fight amongst each other, and Shura says he could do a much better job by himself, while Om, the Sky Breeder, says his iron challenge is unbeatable, giving me Zoro and Sanji vibes. Gedatsu, the Sky Boss, says his Swamp Challenge is the ultimate trial, though he can't even cross his arms. These seem to be Enel's top 3 commanders. The Skypia Heavenly Warrior Commander Yama says silence. You are in the presence of Enel, and Shura replies, where is Mr. High and Mighty, showing this whole god title is a gimmick when you really get down behind the curtains. Enel then does a surprise attack on all 3 priests and cartwheels to the throne like he's Simone Biles. Enel then says the three priests need some serious training or they'll end up like Satori. Gadatsu says what was that for, and Shura pleads for Enel not to roast them. Enel then lets them know these blue sea dwellers are legit and are after the gold, and says this island is from the blue sea, showing Enel is not ignorant to the blue sea. Enel lets the priest have full freedom when Luffy and Viper group attack tomorrow, and he also says the maxim is almost complete and this island won't matter anymore. So let's stop all interference and journey to the world of our dreams. The Straw Hats awake to the Marigold fixed up and question who did it. The person who did it knew how the Mary looked before, which is interesting. Ironically, Usopp wishes the Mary could talk and tell him who did it. The plan is also set as Usopp, Sanji, and Nami will take the Marigold to the eastern shore, and Luffy, Zoro, Robin, and Chopper will go find the gold and rendezvous with the crew where they will leave Skypia extremely rich, hopefully. Luffy and Zoro start arguing which way to go, and Robin quickly corrects them. Luffy picks up a stick as their group walk in the forest and run into a huge snake. Gonville then begins to explain the history of the land that appeared in Skypia 400 years ago. The knockup stream used to bring items to the sky they called Worth, and then Upper Yard appeared, a miracle the Sky People believed was bestowed upon them from the heavens, and called it sacred ground. The Shandians lived on this ground originally from the Blue Sea, and fighting took place, and their land was stolen from them. Sounds like the history of North America. 6 years ago, Enel came to Skypia from one of the other Sky Islands with his army and attacked both the Shandians and Gonfal's heavenly warriors, and took control of Upper Yard. The reason Gonfal became Sky Knight was to help escapees who are considered criminals and can't remain in Skypia, where Enel can still attack them. Gonfal also says Enel is worse than scary and he has no morals, and will even call travelers like the Straw Hats guilty and use the Skypians people to pass judgment, a very manipulative man, which makes him a great villain. Gonfal even says the title of Kami isn't enough. He actually thinks he's God and calls him a tyrant. We then see this giant snake, which, mind you, this is important to the story, and Luffy, Chopper, Robin, and Zoro dodge as Zoro also notices its amazing speed. Once they see it also has poison, they make a strategic retreat. After they start teasing the snake a bit, they all eventually get separated, with Luffy believing south is where it's warm. Yes, Luffy, the genius. We then see a flashback of Gonfal trying to negotiate with the Shandians, which angers Viper, who tells Gonfal give back Upper Yard. Gonfal says no can do, Skypians need the Verth and can't take it from its people, who are blameless, which completely angers Viper, an age-old argument that is happening to this day. Free Palestine. Might get demonetized for that one. Viper then tells Gonfal to bring 100 heads as a sacrifice, and Gonfal obviously declines. Gonfal then says he loves pumpkin juice. That enrages Viper as fighting begins, and Aisha starts crying as her monsters with her since she was a baby. Rakai then says Viper is just like a demon as we get back to the present time, and Viper throws away the Verth she was collecting. Viper then says only those who are willing to push forward and leave comrades behind come with me, as he states Enel's head will roll. Enel's priest and Yama prepare for the battle, and one of Enel's soldiers question if they are overdoing it, and he replies, "You are overlooking the hidden potential in the battle for the sky." This to me confirms Enel as an intellect who weighs all the possibilities. Enel then counts the people who will partake in this battle as 81 and turns it into a betting game of survival. So someone predicts 50 will be left standing, and Enel says you are naive and not taking this battle serious, as he states 5 will be left standing. An interesting prediction to say the least. We then see the Shandians on the move, and their body starts to feel weird as they run into Shura, who says this is not the same force as last night. All the Shandian warriors got caught into his string challenge, so thin to see. From the beginning of their assault, only Viper remains stringless and attacks Shura, who laughs at the idea of losing in an aerial battle, as Kamakuri warns Viper of the heat javelin we saw Chopper and Gonfal have to deal with earlier. Viper then gets rid of his shield and weapon and pulls out a dial 10 times stronger than the impact dial, and defeats Shura in one shot, as 80 fighters remained on the battlefield, and showed how Viper is one of the strongest fighters on the Upper Yard. Gonfal begins to explain to Sanji, Nami, and Usopp about sky battles and tells Sanji to hit the shell on the barrel extremely hard as nothing happens surprisingly. We learn the shells absorb the impact and the Skypians call it an impact dial. We learn that is what Satori used during the earlier battle. Gonfal then explains there is legends of other amazing dials that were wielded by ancient warriors of the Sky Islands, and a reject dial is one of them able to emit 10 times the power while endangering your life. We also learned Shura was using a heat dial on his javelin and a flame dial in Fusa's beak, so it can do a flame breath like Kaido. Gonfal then explains mantra as a power used to listen, and humans emit voices from their body. The more the user has mastered the mantra, the greater they can listen to. The priest can use mantra all over Upper Yard, while Anel can use it across the entire country. We then see Anel announce an upset as Shura has fallen, but doesn't really care losing 2 priests and calls it a lack of divine protection. We see the 50 heavenly warriors who look like goats, but are not goated. Kamakiri yells at Wiper for using a projectile and almost killing himself. Wiper replies, "Isn't this what you call commitment?" And the Shandians split up so they don't get all caught up in a challenge again. The 50 warriors use a rare axe style that goes throughout the Shandian shield. The real GOAT Luffy easily defeats one of Anel's heavenly warriors with ease. He then runs into Wiper, who's damaged from his battle with the priest Shura. Chopper gets mixed up in the battle between heavenly warriors and Shandians. Robin then defeats one of the heavenly warriors who's disrespecting the historical ruin. Wiper and Luffy begin to argue, which leads to Luffy apologizing. Wiper then tells Luffy he's going to take him down, which makes Luffy happy. Zoro defeats one of the Shandians without cutting him. Braham then defeats one of the heavenly warriors and begins to fight Zoro. He gives Zoro a kick to the gut, showing he's not no weakling, like the previous fodder we have seen getting low dipped. They both respect each other's power and look to get serious. Zoro realizes Braham's speed is because of the waver on his shoes, and he shoots a flash that makes Zoro lose sight of him, showing how unique the fighting style of the Sky People are. Braham dodged Zoro's 3-sword style tiger trap attack. Zoro quickly runs out of the way of Braham's shooting. Braham then uses his Milky Dial to approach Zoro. Zoro then dodges the attack and cuts a sky eel. Zoro gets hit again and says his legs hurt, and Braham is too fast and realizes he has to do something about those light guns. Zoro uses his goggles, and Braham quickly points out they're not sun goggles. He also explains Zoro struggling with his swordsmanship because of the flashes, and to give up as he already shot one leg. Zoro tells him it's just a graze and was distracted by the eel, and he realizes he needs to get better at concentrating. This is obviously a hint at Zoro needing to improve his mantra, Observation Haki. Zoro avoids being shot at again by jumping down and feels the pain of his shot leg when he races the jump impact. Zoro then explains man having 6 senses, and each one of these can be good, bad, or neutral. He also says they can be pure or impure, and in a lifetime there are 36 earthly desires. Zoro then says he has a cannon aimed at Braham that will overpower his pistols. Zoro does a flying slash called 36-pound cannon that defeats Braham. Zoro apologizes as blood rushed down his cheek and says he will do what it takes to survive as Anel's survival battle heats up. Chopper then runs into his second priest in Gedatsu, who thinks he's a raccoon. Anel then defeats Sanji as he tells Gonfall he's a former friend from 6 years back. Anel then goes on to one-shot Usopp and tells Nami to shut up and he won't hurt her as well. Anel says he came to say goodbye to Gonfall and says the labor he put Gonfall's warriors is ending after 6 years. Anel says the reason Upper Yard is valuable is not the verse but the city of gold in the ruins of Shandora. And I must admit, Gonfall not knowing about it is laughable. Luffy tanks Wiper's attack, so Wiper switches up what he shoots at Luffy. Luffy smells gas, so Wiper explains he mixed in gas and in the wind dial, calling it a burned bazooka, which burns everything in its path. As Luffy dodges, it rips through one of the huge trees. Wiper speed blitzes for a kick, but Luffy dodges and lets out a counterattack that Wiper blocks. Luffy then tries his Gomu Gomu no Stamp, which Wiper blocks numerous of times. Wiper shoots his bazooka again, but Luffy dodges and lets out his own bazooka to clash with Wiper's attack, which breaks his shield, as they both get back up for more. Luffy disappears and Wiper changes his attention to Enel. We see Luffy has fell into some dark area with ruins as well. We see Genbo has taken multiple heavenly warriors out as the commander Yama stands before him. Genbo shoots an iron cannonball and Yama kicks it back to him, slamming him into a tree. Yama then hits Genbo with his mountain axe as he wins the battle of Big Backs. Robin learns the ancient city name is Shandora. The city thrived over 1,100 years ago before the Void Century, might I add, and it was also destroyed 800 years ago. Coincidence? I think not. We then see Yama's creepy ass slowly approach Robin from behind. We then see the sub-commanders of the Heavenly Warriors, who are also Satori's brothers, here for revenge. Their names are Hattori and Kotori, and they are triplets. An injured Gonfall and Nami begin to battle these brothers, but first they try to see what dials they use. A Heavenly Warrior then helps Gedatsu to see and target Chopper as well, as his priest is not the sharpest tool in the box. He then approaches Chopper, not able to see again, which frightens Chopper. Gedatsu thinks Chopper can turn invisible, and Chopper thinks he's scary for showing the white of his eyes like he's Undertaker or something. One of the Heavenly Warriors start coaching Gedatsu, who Chopper quickly realizes is an idiot. Gedatsu reveals his swamp challenge, but he ends up being the one sinking in it, but he gets out with milky dials on his shoes. Gedatsu shoots this swamp cloud at his own Heavenly Warrior instead of Chopper that suffocates him. He then shoots another one at Chopper, who hasn't moved an inch. Yeah, this priest is pretty trash, I must admit. Chopper then saves the life of the Heavenly Warrior, and Gedatsu says it's quite pitiful to be saved by the enemy. The Heavenly Warrior decides to join Chopper with his axe style, but gets jet punched into a tree. The jet dial is very fast, but damages gets out Gedatsu's clothes, showing him to at least have decent power. Chopper uses jumping point to dodge the jet punch. Gedatsu Milky dials the Chopper, but he uses heavy point to dodge again, so Gedatsu shoots his Swamp Cloud at Chopper. Chopper uses his guard point in the nick of time, then quickly switches to brain point to analyze the opponent. Chopper gets hit with a jet punch that damages even though he was in guard point, and he finds out Gedatsu's legs are his weak point. But the damage is starting to accumulate as Chopper is seeing blurry and his legs are shaking from the attack. Chopper doesn't run away though and grabs Gedatsu's leg, who kicks Chopper and charges up another Swamp Cloud. Chopper uses his jumping point to bait Gedatsu to fly with only one shoe. Gedatsu hits Chopper with another jet punch as he realized he got distracted and let his mantra slip up. Chopper tanks the attack, goes into arm point and defeats Gedatsu with his Cloven cross attack. Chopper's first 1v1 win as a Straw Hat Pirate. Chopper screams he is now a real pirate as he notices Gedatsu is still alive, but he uses his Milky Dial to shoot himself all the way to the blue sea. We then see Kamakiri close to the ruins of Shandora where the giant Jack Beanstalk is, and where Enel also should be located, but to his surprise Enel is right next to him. Enel asks what does he want as he defeats one of the Shandian warriors. Enel gives Kamakiri 5 minutes to attack him where he won't move an inch. Meanwhile, Kotori and Hattori start to beat on Usopp and Sanji for beating Satori earlier. They use a fart impact dial on Nami's face, which hopefully she doesn't get pink eye. Gonfo then assesses the 4 dials in Yuch, which are the flame dial, the axe dial, the impact dial, and the scent dial. They start dancing around to fool Gonfo and Nami, who seem not to care as Nami throws a typhoon, which misses. Then they attack Gonfo with gas and flame to cause an explosion. Kotori thinks Gonfo was burnt but gets defeated by assuming. Then Nami typhoon hits Hattori off the ship. Hattori returns angry as both his big brothers and kid brother have been defeated, and Nami sends cool balls as Hattori shoots out flames, which causes fog, and Nami jumps on Hattori and hits him with an impact dial, which also causes great pain to Nami. We then jump to the fight of Robin versus Yama, and it's not looking so good. We then see Kanes, her father Pagia, and Aisa heading towards Upper Yard, and Aisa's mantra is noticing many people have fallen. Gonfo armors up and heads for Enel. Kanes then meets up with Nami with their loudspeaker playing as well. Yama attacks Robin with mouth and belly. Robin then blocks Yama's attack to protect the hieroglyphs. Robin then tells Yama fools who don't respect the past are doomed to repeat it. Yama then does a mountain punch, so Robin decides to bait him away from the ruins. Enel wakes up and Kamakiri is still fighting him to the point where he stabs Enel in the head. Enel tells Kamakiri he is lightning and a mere man can't defeat him. Kamakiri then attacks Enel with his burned blade, which cuts off a tree but does nothing to Enel. Enel starts to defend himself as the 5 minutes are up, and Kamakiri tells Whitebird to run as a reject dial won't do anything, but Enel 1 million volts Vari defeats him. Enel defeats 20 people with this attack by accident because of the Milky Road. In 2 hours, 56 have fallen, 13 of the 54 original Enel force, 7 of the 20 Shandians still stand, and 5 of the 7 Straw Hats remain as Nami gets gifted a waiver, Pagia fixed, and Luffy finds gold. The waiver Pagia fixed is a level faster than his because there is a extinct jet dial from centuries ago. But we learned recently the One Piece world was more advanced centuries ago. Luffy's starving in a weird cave. Zoro gets stuck with a South Bird he is arguing with while lost, which is typical Zoro. Every arc he gets lost. There is 1 hour left for Enel's 5 survivors prediction to come true as a Shandian tries to kill Enel but then fails, leaving 24 survivors. You see Robin running away from Yama, who's destroying the ruins as he chases her. Robin then gets to a clear place where she can now fight for Yama, destroying the precious history. He goes for a dropkick called Mountain Drop, but Robin with her Delphi swings him into a tree. Robin then covers his eyes and reverses his dials that slams him into a tree. Robin then grabs his head to tell him the site he destroyed was a priceless treasure and we can never return to the past, which he doesn't understand. Yama asks to be forgiven, which Robin declines, and breaks his fingers, rolls him over a cliff while choking him so he can't breathe. She clutches his neck as he fell headfirst into the ground like Gedatsu as Robin puts her hat on stating he does such horrible things. Her first 1v1 win as a Straw Hat, and Robin wouldn't win a 1v1 fight again until Wano, showing how significant this arc is. Nico Robin reaches the center of the map but questions if it's El Dorado as the size is off. Chopper climbs Giant Jack as he's excited to reach El Dorado. Ohm tells Holly to stay as Chopper is the third one to reach this point. And at this point, I feel bad for Chopper, who ran into 3 of Enel's priests. Ohm says Gedatsu is better off dead, and Chopper backs up into a bloodied up Shandian warrior as Ohm says it wasn't Holly, it was me who beat him. Ohm starts to cry about humans fighting each other and does his Kumbaya World Peach speech as Chopper is completely confused. He then says all humans must die, which shocks Chopper even more as Ohm pulls out his weapon and claims he will save Chopper. Kamakiri tells Rakai to stop Wiper because Enel is invincible. Kamakiri is strong, but Enel broke his spirit, and the Gorogoro no Mi is said to be the most powerful Logi adult fruit, and Enel has its power. Zoro ends up back at the altar, and the South Bird laughs at him. The bird then grabs the food and flies south as Zoro hangs on, which is a blessing in disguise because of where the gold is. Luffy reaches a dead end of the cave and tries a bazooka that causes havoc. Chopper runs away and thinks since Ohm is a swordsman he is safe. Ohm then does a flying slash, proving him to be Enel's strongest priest. Nami then jumps into the water to save Isa, who's trying to fight like the Shandian warriors. We then see the huge snake from earlier next to the merry-go. Luffy then kicks the cave, causing the snake pain, proving Luffy is inside. Luffy continues to attack the snake from the inside, and Nami jumps on her waiver and tries to escape with Isa into the forest. The snake then interrupts a fight between heavenly warriors who call it the ruler of the sky and Shandians who notice Isa. We then see Zoro still flying with the Southbird, who gets chased by the snake, so Zoro gets dropped. We then see Wiper climbing Giant Jack and runs into Ohm, who's Enel's last commander. We then see former Kami Gonfal arrive as well to this triple threat match on Monday Night Raw. Gonfal informs Wiper Enel destroyed his temple and is not there as he has no use for that anymore. Zoro arrives, making it a 4-way fatal match. Zoro says to surrender the gold. Ohm says welcome to his iron challenge. Wiper says he will wipe them all out, no pun intended. And Gonfal wants to know where Enel and his forces are as Luffy continues to attack the snake from the inside. As we see one of the best panels of Skypia, and the survival battle intensifies. Zoro notices the giant serpent followed him, and Ohm lets Holly know he can be a bad dog this time. Gonfal targets Ohm and Wiper targets everyone. Wiper and Zoro clash, but the giant snake interrupts. Zoro notices the poisonous fangs and then sees Holly's fangs too, but gets punched instead like he's fighting Mike Tyson. Ohm explains he trained Holly to stand up straight in hand-to-hand combat. Ohm blocks Gonfal's attack and makes fun of him for losing to Shura. We jump back to Robin exploring the island clouds. Robin realizes the island clouds are covering the original land from the Blue Sea. Zoro notices Chopper's hurt and Ohm attacks with his iron challenge while Zoro's distracted. Ohm explains it's an iron cloud, but half of what damaged Chopper was himself. Ohm asks Zoro if he wants revenge, and he says I don't fight with a motive, but I can feel one coming on. Robin finds Giant Jack as heavenly warriors chase Nami and Isa. Robin explains 800 years ago the city of Shandora suddenly disappeared, and Robin is now seeing the city of gold. Like maybe an ancient weapon caused the ocean levels to rise and sinked it 800 years ago. Nah, probably not. Kanas and her father Pagia end up protecting the merry-go, which is worse than Chopper being left to fend for the ship as they got no combat experience, and they blow that stupid horn to ward off enemies until the Straw Hats return at their rendezvous point. We see Shura's lifeless body, which I still can't believe he was the first to go down out of the 81. Heavenly Warriors and Shandians pass the Fallen as they head to Kami's temple. We then see Kamakiri, Braham, Genbo as Rocky tries to stop Wiper from fighting Enel after Kamakiri's warning. We also get a Satori sighting as well, who fell a day before Shura. We also see Yamo's body upside down as Enel says perfect, they all will climb up to the top and perish as his prophecy can come true. We come back to the fight as Wiper shoots his bazooka at Gonfal, who pleads for Wiper to stop as he's not the enemy. The snake attacks Gonfal and Wiper uses this to shoot a bazooka at the snake, but it can't go through its scales like it's a dragon or something. Back to Ohm versus Zoro. He explains his sword has a dial where an iron cloud follows his opponents forever. Ohm decides to split up from Holly and fight separately as the rest of the Heavenly Warriors and Shandians appear ready to support Ohm and Wiper. Luffy tries to dig out the snake, which tickles it, and he starts laughing. Nami and Isa appear and Heavenly Warriors try to take them down, but Wiper, Zoro, and Gonfal protect them in a heartbeat. Wiper then shoots a bazooka at Nami, but Gonfal comes to the rescue. They end up being swallowed by the snake, which distracts Wiper and Zoro. Holly punches Wiper, and Ohm cuts Zoro. Ohm mocks them for leaving their guard down. Ohm starts counting how many people are left to 10 people and 2 animals as the fight continues. Holly then defeats a Shandian while triggering the Iron Challenge as Ohm tells him to run. Ohm sets up the Vine Cage match like it's WWE or Dressrosa. Zoro tells Ohm I ain't running. Wiper then uses the Iron Challenge to defeat one of the Heavenly Warriors, talking crap. Zoro then tries to realize how to escape after they win, and Ohm tells him to win first. Rakai runs towards Wiper, telling him Kamakiri has been defeated, and Enel isn't in his temple as Wiper sees Enel behind Raki and tells her to run. He begs Enel to let her go as he grabs the Iron Cloud cage. A Heavenly Warrior attacks Wiper from the back, but he doesn't care as he stares at Rakai, who gets electrified. This completely angers Wiper, who destroys the Heavenly Warrior who attacks again. Enel tells Wiper women can be warriors too, and preaches equality as he questions Wiper's power. Ohm tells them Enel is all-knowing because of his lightning devil fruit, and Zoro and Wiper ignore and try to free Nami from the snake, but start fighting each other regardless of them having the same goal. Then commands Holly to attack them, and he attacks Zoro right after, who blocks the attack. Viper then defeats a Heavenly Warrior, making it 6 people left and 2 animals. We then see Luffy and Nami reunite, and he still thinks it's a cave. Nami tells Luffy he has been eaten by the giant snake and his outfit is half digested. Nami then realizes Luffy has been causing the snake to run wild. The snake starts to wild out again, and Viper tries to cut his stomach open. Viper burns his tongue and with his bazooka, and it quickly attacks him back. Zoro tries to deal with Ohm's attack and defeats one of the Heavenly Warriors with ease. Ohm uses his mantra to count 5 people and 2 animals left. Ohm then defeats a Shandian with his mantra, making it 4 people left. Ohm then blocks Zoro's attack with an iron cloud wall. Ohm then attacks with an iron fan fork and flail. As Zoro wonders why he can't avoid his attacks, Ohm then blocks Zoro's flying slash he used to defeat Braham earlier and claims he can tell where Zoro is with his mantra. Holly defeats a Shandian, making it 3 people left, and also predicts Zoro will be defeated soon. Ohm then tells Zoro he must be the leader of the Blue Sea people, showing the respect of Zoro's power when it's actually Luffy who's the leader. Zoro then does the unthinkable with a 108-pound phoenix and blocks Ohm's iron cloud to defeat him with a flying slash. Robin finds the same writing on the poneglyphs on the wall of the city who fought the enemy during the Void Century. The writing mentions a great bell. Robin realized the golden city of Shandor was ruined after protecting the poneglyphs, and the great bell, which should have been in the center of the 4 altars, was actually gone. Robin continues to find clues as Enel mentions how impressive Shandor is, existing in such glory in the sky. Enel makes fun of Gonfal for not discovering it. Robin asks who he is, in which he replies to Kami. Enel is impressed by Robin finding it so fast when it took him months, and states it must be easier because she can read the writing. Enel tells her the gold is gone and says it suits him. Robin then realizes Enel doesn't know about the golden bell. Enel then realizes the bell is here through the legend of the great bell ringing in the sky 400 years ago. Enel says he will look for it after the game is done, and Robin wants to find the poneglyph as Enel senses a maggot in the edge of the island. One of Enel's warriors, who was captured 6 years ago, tells Connors to warn his wife and kid on Angel Island that Enel will destroy everything. He says Enel will kill every person in the sky and escape on the Ark Maxim. As he explains, they were forced to work on it for 6 years. Enel destroys him and Pagia, who sacrificed himself for his daughter Connis' well-being. Zoro then tells Holly to knock himself out since he obeys anybody, making Ohm look bad after his defeat. Enel then uses his lightning on Giant Jack as the ruin begins to fall. Connors goes to warn Angel Island as Enel celebrates the finale of his game. Chaos ensues as Luffy and Isa get left behind after Luffy held the exhaust pipe of the Waver. Gonfal tells Pierre to save Luffy and Isa as he and Nami escape the snake. Robin sees Swordsman aka Zoro come down with the ruins as he lifts it up. Viper then realizes it's his people's land right in front of him. The giant snake starts crying when he sees what's around him. Enel then attacks the ruler of the sky with El Thor as Viper and Zoro scream for Isa and Nami. Nami tells Zoro she's okay, but Luffy's in there. Viper is pissed he couldn't damage ruler of the sky, but Enel could in one attack. Enel dodges Viper's bazooka and creates an island cloud ball to sit on. Enel explains the prediction of 5 people left, and he has 3 minutes left since there's actually 6, which shocks Nami. Enel gives Viper, Gonfal, Robin, and Zoro a choice to eliminate one, and they choose to eliminate him, which he believes is a bad choice. We then see Gonfal question if his people are the bad guys since the Shandians just want their homeland back, but their prosperous life was because they took over 400 years ago. Then it shows how Enel came to conquer Skypia. We then see the kids saying Connors is bad, and one of the kids' father is in Kami's forces, and he hasn't even met him yet, showing how they are being brainwashed by their parents' fear. Connors won't let the kid's father's last words go in vain and goes to save the people. Enel then goes on to read Gonfal as an old relic, yearning for happiness in Skypia. Viper is a warrior searching blindly for the homeland. Blue Sea pirates hunting for gold. Then Enel says something is wrong with his country. Enel reveals he wants a happy return to the Endless Birth. The people of Enel's home island believe Kami lives there, and it stretches as far as the eyes can see, another foreshadowing to the overall One Piece lore in this arc that people tell others to skip. Enel then says it's pointless fighting over a speck of land like Upper Yard for years, as we can see Enel has big dreams. Enel then says humans living in the sky is not natural and will bring all humans to the ground. Enel then explains his plans to destroy this country and says the 650 Kami force was killed when they rebelled hearing Enel's plan. Gonfal and Rage attacks Enel, who counters with 20 million Vari. Enel then tells a defeated Gonfal there is a Kami in this world and it's me. Robin, Zoro, and Nami notice Enel has an invincible Delphoid of lightning. Enel then invites the remaining 5 to join him, and Robin says, "What if we refuse?" And Enel says, "Why?" And Enel then tells Robin he knows where the golden bell is, which shocks Robin, who tried to trick Enel. Enel then attacks Robin for being conniving, which reminded me of when Crocodile attacked Robin for her intellect. Zoro grabs Robin and tells Enel she's a woman, who says, "I know, I saw." Pretty much he has equal rights and lefts for both men and women, and Zoro was in his Sanji bag here. Zoro then attacks Enel, who respects his skill. Enel then stops Wiper's bazooka flame with ease. Zoro goes to attack again after Nami tells him to stop, he's too strong. This is the same outcome if Zoro fought Crocodile's Logia at this time. At this time, if you didn't have Haki, Logias were pretty much unstoppable. Enel grabs Zoro's swords and electrocutes him. He then steps on Zoro's face in one of the most disrespectful moments in the series. Wiper jumps on Enel with Sea Prism Stone to nullify his Delphu powers. He then hits him with the Rejectile. This moment right here is why Wiper's power is underrated, because up until this point, he's the only one to do this in this arc. We then see a mini flashback where Shandian's history is explained of Shandor protecting the Poneglyphs from the world's government, and only few survived. We then see the kid version of Kamakiri, Braham, Genbo, and Wiper explain the history of 400 years when they came to the sky and lost their land. Then the elder tells them to bring back the light of Shandora. We then jump back to the present time where a defeated Enel lies in front of Wiper. Enel then starts to discharge lightning out of nowhere. Enel revives his heart like the first time. Luffy turned into Nika and says, "People do not fear Kami. Fear is the Kami." Wiper then succumbs to his damage from the Rejectile and tells Enel to stop using his name in vain, as Enel was taunting him, saying that he warned Wiper. Wiper speaks about avenging the Great Calgera and tells Enel he's the only thing that stands in his way. Then Enel does one of his strongest attacks since Wiper hurt him with the Sea Prism Stone, and with hitting his drum with lightning, sending out a 300 million volt Eno Bird Zap. After Wiper gets hit, Zoro grabs his shoe that has a Sea Prism Stone and tries to attack Enel. Enel sends a lightning beast Kitan wolf attack that puts down Zoro for good. Wiper stands back up, showing, "I told you guys, Wiper's legit." And Enel questions why he stands, and he says for his ancestors. Again, like I said, one of the strongest characters we have seen up until this point. That never gets talked about. Enel then hits Wiper with an L Thor that shows how capable he is when it comes to destructiveness. It's actually amazing. Nami then asks Enel if she can go to the world of dreams with him in a surprising twist. We then see Captain McKinley, who vows to protect Skypia peace for Enel, which is ironic. Nami then asks if she can bring her waiver, and Enel then shows her the Maxim, and it says it runs on lightning. And he uses the gold as a conduct to make the ship fly. We then see a huge ship called the Arc Maxim with paddles and a huge gold face at the top. We then see Luffy reach the Snake Eyes, where eventually him and Isa and Pierre get spat out. Luffy celebrates his freedom and is excited for the Golden Bell as Isa sees her homeland for the first time. Luffy finds Zoro's lifeless body and is shocked this could happen, knowing how strong Zoro is. Luffy then sees Wiper and confirms how strong he was. And honestly, Luffy's in complete shock how this could happen. Isa's mantra wasn't working when she was in the snake, so she couldn't tell what happened. Robin tells Luffy Nami went with Enel and he plans on destroying Skypia. Luffy then asks for Isa to take him to Enel with her mantra. Enel knows with his mantra that Kanos is starting chaos on Angel Beach, and Nami asks if it's his mantra, and he reveals his secret to knowing everything is his lightning power he used to read electric signals and listen in on convos. Should he hear some wild stuff, that's when he does his punishment. Enel celebrates the demise of Skypia as a true demon, and Nami doesn't know what to do since Enel has won. Enel then sends something and becomes very serious. We then see Kanos crash into Captain McKinley just like how Nami did earlier in the arc, and at this point I just feel bad for the dude. Kanos tells everyone to leave, but a kid throws a rock at her, and when the Bray are about to capture her, she says she doesn't accept Enel as her god. They all run expecting some sort of punishment from Enel, but nothing happens, which confirms what Kanos is saying is true, which drives the people into denial since they only know the sky. Luffy heads up Giant Jack with Pierre, and Robin decides to move the bodies that have fallen. Enel is mad his prophecy was wrong as Luffy asks Enel if he is Kami, showing the amazing writing, especially how the current story of One Piece is going. Luffy asks him what he did to his crew, and Enel says, "Which piece of garbage do you speak of?" The ultimate disrespect. The people prepare to flee to the Blue Sea as family of the Kami force asks Kanos what happened to them. Captain McKinley tells the families he will deal with it even though he already knows it's not looking too good. Captain McKinley then explains the Burka Island disappeared 6 years ago, the same island that Enel was born and raised. Burka also had a powerful Sky Knight, but he was no match for Enel, probably the Mad Monk Aruj if I'm being honest. Captain McKinley then explains why he did the things he did, and Kanos says she understands as she needs to go help her friends, and he quickly remembers the Blue Sea people and gives her a Heso. Luffy then tells Enel he doesn't see a Kami in front of him. Enel then notices Luffy's Delphin and says, "You're just a Paramecia and no match for him." If only knew that mythical zone was too much for him actually. Enel attacks Luffy with his signature L Thor that causes a huge hole but no damage to Luffy. Enel amps it up with a 6 million volt lightning dragon, but that does nothing as well, so Enel does a close range 100 million volt fiery attack, and Nami notices Luffy's rubber body makes him invincible to lightning. Luffy tells him to stop it, which leads to the iconic Enel face we all know and love. Enel starts to speak to himself, saying nothing can damage him and Luffy is just a blue sea monkey, which leads to Luffy kicking the shit out of him. Nami sees Luffy to be Enel's one and only natural enemy, and honestly, just shows pretty much the foreshadowing of how valuable Luffy's rubber properties are in the One Piece story. Luffy lies and tells Enel he's a rubber man, knowing what we know now, and he looks confused since rubber doesn't exist in the sky. Luffy then tells Enel lightning will work against him, so Enel begins to use his mantra to dodge Luffy's attacks and hits Luffy with his golden staff multiple times as he pins it against Luffy's neck and tells him to humble himself. Enel says he has other ways of fighting, and Luffy realizes he has the Satori mantra that he fought earlier. Enel then turns his golden staff into a trident to pierce Luffy with it. Enel realizes his weakness is sharp objects and he teleports through the gold to surprise Luffy, and he grabs the trident, but it's hot because of the electrical heat stored inside of it. Luffy then uses his battle axe he used to defeat Arlong and practice before becoming a pirate when Kuma was watching him train, and Enel gets back up. Enel then stops Luffy's Gatling attack, telling him his hands haven't actually multiplied. Enel then uses 200 million volts to start the Arc Maxim. Luffy then tells Nami to stop worrying, and she's a crew member of the future Pirate King. Stop looking so pathetic. Knowing Nami's power now, I wonder how her running into Enel would look like. Luffy then tells Enel the Pirate King is the king of the majestic oceans of the world, which Enel replies, let's finish our business in the sky, maybe foreshadowing them having business in the blue sea as well. Enel calls his arc Death Pia, and it will redeem the world of despair. And all I'm thinking is Enel misinterpreted some text he found on his home island, because Death Pia reminds me of the Noah, but nah. Maybe I'm just crazy. Isa says Luffy is a warrior of the Blue Sea and doesn't want to interrupt a battle between warriors, showing that Shandian pride. Enel makes a lightning cloud with his energy and Death Pia. He plans to use his cloud to create a dozen lightning bolts and destroy the country. Enel demonstrates by attacking Angel Island with a lightning bolt. Enel then attacks Luffy with his trident, causing Luffy's leg to burn. Luffy's hands get hot as well, as Enel's high voltage spear seems to be a problem for Luffy. Luffy then becomes even more of a dumbass to not fall for Enel's mantra, which I found hilarious. Luffy can't attack doing this though, so he becomes an octopus, which frustrates Nami. We truly see Luffy's genius though when it comes to battle, when he does his octopus firework off the Maxim that causes damage to Enel since it's unpredictable. Luffy then uses this to hit Enel with the bazooka and rifle, even though Enel sees it coming. He's too down bad to do anything about it. Seeing Luffy stand up while Enel is lying on the ground was a very satisfying feeling. Nami says Luffy did it, but the arc is still flying. Enel gets back up and tells Luffy once he gets rid of him, he will rule the world. Enel begins yapping on him being Kami as Angel Island starts panicking, seeing Enel's ship in the sky as they escape to the boat. I like how Angel Island messenger tells Shandians to flee to the Blue Sea, and Robin is in awe of the arc. Luffy goes to attack Enel, who manipulates the gold wall. Enel forges the gold on Luffy's arm into a ball as Luffy screams in pain over the heat and how he's stuck. Enel pretty much decides he doesn't want to fight Luffy anymore. Enel says he can't risk getting injured fighting Luffy and kicks him off the arc. Enel says once he gets rid of Luffy, nobody in this world can defeat him. Luffy says an interesting statement that many people can beat Enel in the Blue Sea. This angered Enel, but Luffy was keeping it real. When Isa and Pierre tried to rescue Luffy, Enel hits them with the L Thor. Nami decides to stand up to Enel, who tells her to leave everyone behind. This is Nami, who cherishes the past, so I understand why she stood up to Enel, even if it cost her her life. We then see the return of Usopp and Sanji climbing the arc just in time. We then see a mini flashback of Sanji waking up and him kicking Usopp's face so he can wake up as well. They plan to go save Nami. Sanji sees Nami on the arc and notices she didn't have a shirt on, in true Sanji-esque. We see Sanji's bravery and Usopp's fear as they do the unthinkable, and Sanji says he will be the demon of the Blue Sea if Enel hurts Nami. And now using his mantra lets Nami know there are 2 rats on the ship, and Sanji, knowing mantra after defeating Satori, knows there's no point in sneaking around and tells Usopp to split up. Sanji also tells Usopp for Nami he's willing to sacrifice his life, which I found hilarious. Nami dodges Enel's attack, who says he ain't waiting for Nami to be rescued. Usopp is confused how this huge ship has nobody running it on board. We see Robin moving Zoro, Viper, Chopper, and Gonfal's body. The chief knows Enel is going to destroy this country like he did his home island, Burka, and says Viper, this will suffice when it comes to trying to retrieve his homeland. Pierre protects Isa from the L Thor attack, and Luffy gets his head stuck in the ground. Luffy says let's go back to the giant Jack Vine where Robin is. and he won't be defeated so easy as he knows where Enel is going. Nami is actually defending herself really well versus Enel's lightning attacks due to her weather knowledge. Usopp jumps in and uses Exploding Star to attack Enel and says sorry right after in Usopp fashion. Usopp realizes he made it to Enel before Sanji and runs away, but forces himself to come back and face the monster in front of him. He then dodges Enel's lightning attack and asks Nami to save him when he was supposed to save her. Nami intends to use the waiver to escape as Usopp does a backflip to avoid Enel's attack, but the landing needed some work. Usopp does what he knows best, and that's yapping, saying things to hurt Enel, but it fails as Enel figures out Nami's plan to escape. He attacks both Usopp and her, causing Sanji to jump in at the right time and kick Usopp towards Nami so they can escape. Sanji takes a full blast of lightning and still is able to trash talk right after in an iconic moment with a burnt cigarette in his mouth. This is why the lollipop would never work for kids, sorry. Sanji then says Enel's face is of utter defeat. He sees into the future. The man pulled the Katakuri with using advanced mantra, if I'm being honest. Enel then learns Sanji damaged his ship, which makes sense why Usopp made it before Sanji, a man who always thinks ahead. Usopp with his Tarzan rope comes back to grab Sanji. Usopp jumps down with Sanji and, like I said, needs to work on his landing. Nami pulls him out of the cloud and lets him know they gotta go, there's nowhere safe on the Sky Island. Enel mentions his ship has extinct jet dials that his home island Berka produced, can generate enough wind power as a backup system. Isa guides Luffy back to the beanstalk and asks if her Sky Island will be destroyed. Robin notices Enel is heading to the Golden Bell, and Luffy asks Robin if the beanstalk leads to the Golden Bell to confront Enel. Nami decides to go to Luffy with the waiver showing great bravery. Captain McKinley is trying his best to evacuate everyone off Ancient Island, and then we see a lightning attack come out of nowhere as the real threat begins. Enel starts his thunderstorm everywhere and says the party has officially started. We see that Karen old lady at Heaven's Gate charging everyone a 2 billion exit fee as they tell her to escape too. We see the chief during the storm speak to the great Calgera statue saying they will never give up. We see Viper get up and just stare as he thinks of when he was a kid and the chief told him the great Calgera 400 years ago had a friend named Mont Blanc Nolan, which ties everything together. We see Jaya, a bunch of men running back to their ship because of the monster of Shandora. Calgera sends a huge cannon to destroy their ship like he's Garp or something. Calgora goes on to defeat the entire crew with ease. We see a crew on the Grand Line suffering from hunger and sickness, and their captain jumps into the sea, a man who's been to the Grand Line twice. Their captain defeats a huge fish like he's Rayleigh or something. His name is Mont Blanc Nolan from the North Blue. We see Nolan writing his journal as he has been looking for a bell sound for 2 years. We go back to Jaya and see the great priest of Shandora tell his people to sacrifice the most beautiful woman to the great god of Kashi at the sacrificial altar. This girl is named Muse. We see a young boy named Saito who gets a black spot and runs to scrape it off, the sign of this great disease that has killed hundreds so far. Muse is so proud to be sacrificed as her mother cries. Saito sees Calgera and wishes he was strong like him and died defending Shandora and not to a disease. We then see Nolan has reached Jaya as his crew tries to ride a waiver. His crew makes a joke that Southbird was the sound Nolan heard as they see this great forest in front of them. Saito then crawls to Nolan and they notice they have tree fever as a great plague, and their village farms are contaminated and house filled with dying men. We then cut to the sacrifice where they mention sun, rain, forest, and land god, which reminds me of the stories of the 2 previous worlds, but you have to wait for my Elbaf video to learn more about that. As they sacrifice Muse, we see the ruler of the sky and they think it's God. Nolan comes out of nowhere and cuts the head of the snake, and then they accuse him of killing their god, which is just a crazy statement. Nolan then says this is ridiculous, no need to kill anyone like this, as the monster Calgera watches in silence. Nolan's crew panic after the trouble Nolan has caused. Calgera and Nolan clash with their weapons. The people are shocked that Nolan is equal to Calgera. He then throws a knife at Muse and tells her to finish the job, which Nolan stops right away. Calgera stabs Nolan as he's distracted, and he yells at Calgera for using old practices like sacrifice when he's a herbalist who knows truly how to save lives. Nolan tells them to give him time and he will cure their entire village without sacrificing the girl. The chief accepts Nolan's challenge, which shocks everyone, and gives him until sunset to do the impossible. We then see Nolan's crew and Muse locked up, and she asks his crew who is Nolan. They explain he's a herbalist and an explorer who tries to discover new plants as they praise him, showing how much of a great leader he truly is. The chief gets questioned for his decision as Calgera states he will cut Nolan's head off if he fails. We see how the chief has the most knowledge amongst the village. Calgera is shocked when Saito tells him he is cured, and we see Nolan finding the tree of Coline. The 5th earthquake arrives as the people in the village panic and Calgera sets out to kill Nolan. He finds Nolan stuck in the ground and laughs at him for being punished by their god, and Nolan replies that wasn't that powerful to only take down one man. Nolan and Kalgura start arguing about their beliefs as Nolan tells Kalgura to leave, you evil man, and he says farewell. Kalgura watches Nolan struggle and asks him how does it feel to be swallowed up by the earth, and Nolan thinks to himself he has to get back to the village since he found the cure, showing great determination and willpower. We see more people have died at the village and they call Nolan the Godslayer as they prepare to kill his crew for disrupting the ritual for no reason. Saito then protects Nolan's crew as a warrior of Shandia. They must honor their words. We get back to Nolan still struggling to get out of the land he's stuck in. Nolan then starts to insult Kalgura and his people's customs of sacrificing the innocent and gets kicked in the face as a reward for his words. Kalgura then lets Nolan know the girl he saved was his daughter, and Nolan is shocked, questions Kalgura for letting his daughter be sacrificed in the moment. We learn how devoted Kalgura is to his beliefs. We see the child of the snake Nolan killed earlier approach as he yells at Kalgura. His home had a similar disease that killed 100,000 people called tree rush. Its death rate was 90% 60 years ago, but now it's less than 3% because of a herbalist of the South Sea found a vaccine. And YouTube, this isn't 2020, so don't strike me down. Nolan also explained how he has the key ingredient to a vaccine that can save the Shandians, and many people researched around the world and died for the cure, but Shandian superstitions are insulting all of that. Kalgura then remembers the chief saying he is trying to hear the voice of men and kills the snake that was about to kill Nolan. Kalgura then asks himself, what did he just kill? And he cries out to Nolan to save his people. We then see a montage of the village being saved and a celebration beginning similar to the one Luffy and the Straw Hats held, embarking on their quest for gold on Upper Yard. We see a small snake approach Nolan and Kalgura, and they laugh at the mere fact it's a small snake descendant of what they thought was Kashi earlier. The Shandians have never seen Kalgura laugh like that. This is amazing friendship led to Kalgura showing Nolan the golden bell sound in the City of Gold. Kalgura lets them take as much gold as they want except the bell for saving them from the disease. Kalgura reveals it's not the gold they protect but the poneglyph which got their ancestors destroyed for protecting it. Kalgura explains the lore of the bell being for his ancestors. Kalgura asks Nolan to stay and tell his story as he is the first guest since the Void Century. We see a montage of Nolan and Kalgura at a bonfire with the people doing the Nika dance. We see them also destroy two big sea creatures. 1 month later, we see something happen that turned the village against Nolan, but the chief said to hide your emotions, they are leaving in a few days. Kalgura said if he saw Nolan's face, he would kill him, and the bell didn't ring, which was strange for the Nolan crew. Nolan comes to the City of Gold to ask Kalgura, but he throws a big spear and cuts his cheek while telling Nolan to get lost. We find out they cut a bunch of trees that were sacred. The Tree of Embodiment is where the guided souls that hear the golden bell are harvested. Nolan then orders his crew to give back all the gold. Muse runs to Kalgura after she learns Nolan cut the trees to save the village from the tree rush disease spreading, and lets her father know immediately. We then see Saito and the rest of the village ringing the bell so Nolan can hear it as Kalgura runs his hardest to see Nolan. Kalgura lets Nolan know the bell will always ring for him, just like it did for the ancestors, and to come back no matter what, and Nolan promises to come back. We then see Nolan back in the North Blue telling the kids there was a land of dwarves, or Tantaras. Nolan lets the king know about the City of Gold and grants him permission to head to the Grand Line 3 times as the admiral of the exploration team. The king wants to go instead of Nolan's usual crew, and they suck at sailing, so it's all on Nolan to protect the king as they lose ships in the process. Nolan comes back and half of the island is gone. The king attacks Nolan for lying, but if I had a time machine, I would have attacked Nolan for telling the king the truth. Nolan asks Kalgura to ring the bell if he's still alive, as 6 months later Nolan is being tried for the statement of there being a City of Gold. We see a fake crew member saying he is lying as his real crew are angry hearing the lies and have to be restrained. Nolan is then yelled at during his public execution as a liar, as he still wonders where did Kalgura and his people go. We then see a year before Nolan returns, Saito and Kalgura go to the ring the bell as they speak about Nolan returning, and a huge earthquake erupts. A knock-up stream sends half of the island into the sky as it lands on a giant Jack the Beanstalk, and the bell rings for all Skypians to hear. We then see the leader of Skypia state only he deserves to live on that island, and to banish the Shandians. The Shandians struggle to breathe as they engage in their first ever sky battle with the Skypians for the land that belongs to them. Kalgura during the battle tells Nolan to wait as the bell will ring for him to return, and how his daughter married Saito and many things have changed since the last time they saw each other. The chief explains to Kid Viper that Kalgura kept screaming, "Relight the light of Shandora," and even if it was once, he wanted to send the message to Nolan. Later, some North Sea visitors explained that Nolan is seen as a liar in the Blue Sea and was executed. Kalgura never found out what happened to Nolan, and he gave his life trying to protect his land. Viper then asks the chief if Nolan will hear the bell if he rings it. The chief cries and says of course because we're so high up next to heaven. We jump back to the present time as Viper questions Anel's right to take everything from them. Anel starts yapping about he's the best or whatever and finds the Shandians' hideout where he attacks and says go back to the Blue Sea. which personally rubbed me the wrong way because of Nolan's flashback. We see the devastation as Enel destroys Angel Island as well. Connis remembers her father as she waits for the Strass to return. Enel continues his chaos as he tries to search for the Golden Bell. Viper asks Robin about it as well. Robin tells Viper it should be above the beanstalk as Enel senses Luffy and Nami with his mantra. Luffy says he will never let Enel take the bell with him. We see Enel reach the top of the beanstalk as he claims he's the first person to ever reach there and looks for the Golden Bell. Luffy reaches the Kami shrine and Enel respects he made it back with that golden ball on his arm. Enel shoots lightning at the beanstalk and Luffy says not fair as it begins to fall down. Viper wants to climb up and fulfill Kagera's wish as Viper is locked in the mission. Enel disappears and Luffy tries to jump on the ship as Nami reaches him with her waiver. We then see a huge dark cloud ball over Angel Island. Enel with the Max attacks with Advent of Thunder, which collapses on Angel Island as the Skypians are shocked to see their home island destroyed. Nami tries to get Luffy to come with her, but he says no because he wants to ring the Golden Bell. Luffy tells Nami the Golden City exists and thinks back on Mont Blanc Cricket and how he keeps diving in the sea to prove Nolan's innocent, so Luffy will ring the bell for him to stop. Enel kicks off Luffy from the Arc Maxim as Nami warned him it would not work. Enel begins to trash talk Luffy and Nami and threatens to destroy Skypia. After he finds the Golden Bell, we also get Luffy borrowing Nami's waiver, but Enel stops him again as we see the mini flashback of Luffy letting Robin know his plan to ring the bell for his friends on Jaya. We then see Robin telling Viper Luffy wants to ring the bell and Enel finds the Golden Bell and plans to take it with him. Nami and Luffy send a message to their crew to cut the beanstalk so it falls forward. Enel then creates an even bigger dark cloud ball of lightning. Nami puts her life in Luffy's hands as she can ride the waiver better than him, and then Zoro says let's cut that beanstalk. Zoro then goes to cut the beanstalk and Enel attacks Zoro with lightning right after. We then get another flashback of the ruler of the sky named Roller from 400 years ago, remembering Kagera and Saito and how they rung the bell every day. Roller hits the beanstalk but it wasn't enough, and then we see Captain McKinley say man cannot win against nature as Skypia is about to be destroyed. Viper yells he must ring the bell, not Luffy, as Usopp says ignore him. Robin, he is half dead. But Robin explains to Viper about Luffy's intention to ring the bell for an explorer from 400 years ago. Viper asks what's the descendant name and Robin tells him Mont Blanc Cricket, and Viper starts crying realizing that the explorer was Nolan's descendant. Viper uses the rejectile to push the beanstalk down and Luffy and Nami try this crazy attempt to reach Enel. Enel then attacks them with thunderstorms as the arc reaches its climax, and honestly, the beginning of Luffy's Nika foreshadowing. Enel is so smart, he starts attacking the beanstalk foundation so Luffy can't reach him. Viper lets Enel know the earth of Shandia will never crumble under your wickedness. Enel then does his Advent of Thunder in an attempt to destroy Skypia. Luffy ditches Nami and jumps towards Enel's attack, and Nami warns him it has a whirlpool of electrical current and high air pressure. Enel mocks Luffy stating what can he do against absolute power? Rubber man? Well, he's actually not a rubber man. Luffy does his golden firework to attack the cloud from the inside. Luffy's golden ball acts as a conductor and is depleting the electricity. While this is happening, the Skypea begin to pray like Luffy's Nika or something, and Luffy says turn sunny now as he succeeds. Everyone is shocked at what Luffy just did as Viper and Gonfalo tell Luffy to ring the bell. Enel gets serious with his 200 million volt ration transformation as he begins to confront Luffy. Luffy stops Enel's yapping and asks if he forgot lightning doesn't work on him as he kicks Enel in the face. Enel then reminds Luffy he has another weapon as he stabs Luffy with his trident. Enel even laughs at Luffy's own right arm, making the trident go deeper into his body and forces Luffy to drop down. Luffy then bazookas his way back to try again to ring the bell. Luffy sends out his golden pistol, which Enel says is very fast, as the hit knocks out Enel's teeth. Luffy rings the golden bell for Mont Blanc Cricket and defeats Enel at the same time. Talk about two birds with one stone, and let them know the Golden City has always been in the sky in a beautiful shot. Everyone reacts to the bell being rung and its beautiful sound, one of the best moments in One Piece. McKinley asks if God does really exist, and the chief mentions Kagera and if he heard the bell. Viper says sorry to Nolan for being late, and hope his descendant can hear it as the snake Roller cries remembering Nolan. We then see Mont Blanc Cricket react to the bell and they realize the giants were just shadows of people living in the sky. Then we see Luffy's shadow and Cricket thanks Luffy for letting them know Nolan wasn't a liar and the city of gold is in the sky. He then cries of happiness that they are alive in the sky. Then we see Enel and his ship crash down and sink. The sound of the bell is proof of the ancient city once prosperous past. It's also a declaration of truth, and though 400 years late, the memories of the past are never forgotten. It's also the message to the whole world that we will always be here. Out of nowhere, we see Rake, Kamakiri, Braham, and Gembo all alive. And after Pell, nobody should be surprised. One Piece durability is top tier. Chopper then attends to Viper, who's in bad shape, and Zoro respects Viper while Sanji doesn't. They feel bad that Enel took most of the gold and decide to send the priest to exile since their leaders is gone. We see a funny moment of them grieving Paglia and him just randomly being alive. We see everyone returning to Upper Yard and Gonfal finding his boys locked up for 6 years because of Anel. All I could think of is the song Stay Alive is just playing in my head. Anel states he will come back someday and heads towards the moon. Viper wakes up wanting smoke still, but the chief tells him that was in the past. And now, look, it's the era of peace in the sky as everyone parties and Luffy does the Nika dance again. They have a crazy bonfire celebrating their victory. After partying for days, Luffy tells Nami let's go steal the gold like a true pirate. We see the Sky People surprise the Blue Sea Pirates party this much as the Straw Hats plan their robbery in the shadows. The Skypians pull up the golden bell and Robin's excited to read the poneglyph. Usopp hustles the people of their dials for a rubber band, which I found funny. We see Road the Snake knocked out from partying too much for Nolan and Calgera, and I love it. We see Luffy, Sanji, Chopper, and Nami gathering gold in Roller's body like it was protecting Shandian's gold. The Shandians pull the bell up and see the poneglyph their ancestor was protecting. The chief is shocked when Robin says we are the recorders of history, existing in harmony with the sound of the great bell. The ancient weapon with the power so strong that it was named after Poseidon is on the poneglyph. Robin is disappointed with the ancient weapon Pluton and Poseidon being on the poneglyphs, and then Robin sees Goldie Roger's quote, "We came here and found the text and followed its guidance. Obviously we know this was the goat Kozuki Odin." Robin is shocked and Gonfal confirms Roger did come to Skypia 20 years ago. Robin figures out by connecting the poneglyph she can figure out the Void Sentry and deliver it to his destination as Shandian Chief cries after their mission was completed. Robin also figures out the end is Lafta, where we see Roger saw Joy Boy's tail and laughed. Gonfal asks Robin if Luffy's related to Roger and she says his name is Monkey D. Luffy, which surprises Gonfal since Roger also had a D initial. Zoro wants to leave Robin, which causes the crew to tussle with him. Then we see the gold the Skypians were offering was mistaken for a cannon, so the Straw Hats left it behind, which Robin found hilarious. Gonfal and the chief look confused on why they left abruptly, and Isil was the only one that got to say goodbye. We see Viper, Braham, Genbo, and Kamakiri all letting Kagura know Nolan's descendant got the message and their mission is complete, so there's no point for fighting as they now all gotta do is just protect Shandora's light. Gonfal offers the chief leadership since it was their land before the war, but the chief says no, you were the one who cared for both sides and most suited for leadership. And Gonfal is thinking, damn, I was trying to retire. We jump back to the Straw Hats leaving the sky and arrive at the exit Cloud End. We see Kanas, Paglia, and Sue accompany the Straw Hats to their exit from the sky. The Southbird from Jaya hops on the ship and Chopper translates him saying, don't leave me behind, as Kanas tells him to prepare for a big fall. That's about to happen, as Luffy gets everyone hyped for the Blue Sea. The Straw Hats are shocked at the fall as Kanas blows the whistle for the balloon octopus to help out. We see the Straw Hats in a hot air octopus balloon down to the ground line as they ring the bell for their departure. We see a montage of all the Sky People and the Verth statue as well that is connected to the Void Sentry perhaps, as the bell forever sings of the pride of its people. What an amazing arc so many people skip in the fanbase, but with this video, there's no excuse to skip it. This is the most important arc in One Piece. Even if fans feel like you can skip it without missing nothing in the overall story, make sure to of course like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet, and thank you so much for watching.